What's going on, guys? Hope you are doing well this afternoon. I just wanted to give you an update on the charts. All right, so I'm just going to get into it really quick. So here I'm on the 37-minute time frame, which is a Fibonacci number, kind of precursor to the 1 hour time frame. So I'm going to be talking specifically intraday stuff. All right, so zooming in here, I'm going to just enlarge these significant lines that I've been kind of looking at. So essentially we've had this like descending channel kind of play out. I would say it started out pretty much probably like a day, almost a little over a day. Uh, and actually, right now we are getting a back test of it. So we did have a confirmed breakout. We've been kind of like, choppy sideways and down up until this point. Then we had a pump to the upside and we got stalled out pretty much at a psychological level at 29.5K. Okay, now that's pretty significant. That the bulls are actually trying to defend this area. So I'm going to change these into white just so you see what I'm talking about. So now transitioning from that particular pattern, I'm going to go into a local Fibonacci extension lines, the lines that I just recently turned from blue to white. Usually the bounce zones within these levels are the 618 and the 382. Obviously here, regarding this extension from the wick high to the wick low on intraday levels, the 618 could not hold as support. That's this red box right here, which is currently acting as the key resistance here at 29.6. Sorry, that is my cousin. All right, so anywho, we are, okay, sorry about that, let me just close that out. We are actually getting a bounce essentially from here, from the 0.382, which is a common bounce area. So that's phenomenal. Also, now zoomed in on the 37-minute time frame, we have this like upward sloping resistance line. I'm going to turn it from red to yellow just so you can see what I'm talking about, that particular line, and also this support, downward sloping support line, which I'm going to turn from green to blue. All right, so here in this particular area, I do feel like we have a broadening ascending channel here, which are actually bullish. Usually what happens in these particular areas is that we get kind of like this choppy type of situation until we break to the upside. So that's rather interesting in terms of the total of what's happening in this market at this time. So a lot of people are bearish. We're getting a lot of like, I would say, conflicting data. We've had some good stuff and like CPI reports. We've had some bad stuff as well. Overall, I'm not going to get too hard into those details. I'm not the channel to be looking into that kind of stuff, obviously, but it is playing a factor into what crypto is up to. That being said, Bitcoin. At this time, I would suspect here that we would kind of sustain this bounce. If we're able to sustain this bounce, then I would expect a pump back up to the $30,000 range. It is a tough ask given that the exponential moving averages are still red and price is still below the price, but given that we're seeing a significant bounce opportunity, I do feel that there is still some legs for that to actually take place. Right now, I'm kind of in a long position, so I'm going to be focusing a lot on this particular area. Obviously I do have a stop loss placed below price action at this time, so right now I'm using kind of like a strategy to just catch these scalps because I do feel like we're going to be in very choppy waters, so that's something I'm looking into. Now, going into say the 37-minute time frame, it looks like the RSI is still kind of like in the oversold region, and we are kind of creating an opportunity here where people are, it's just a safer area to start dollar cost averaging. So as you can see here in this area, people are, this is more of the zone to take profits. I like to use this particular tool for confluence. As you can see, had like a divergence, bearish divergence right here. That was a key indicator of saying, hey, this rally is pretty much over. Start considering taking profits. And then, you come all the way down here, and now we're kind of like in this choppy scenario. What's rather interesting as well, if I were to just zoom out here, we had this like anchor wave right here. And as you can see, the momentum waves are just getting ever so weaker. So even though we are getting pretty much bears kind of short selling these positions right here. The momentum is getting weaker to the downside. Now, money flow has not created a higher low in this instance, so I am going to be looking into what can we do to actually ratchet this level up. Ultimately, my base case and assumption here is that we are going to eventually see money flow start to calm down in terms of its veracity and start kind of bowling up. Ultimately, that's my assumption. Also, momentum. I do feel like we're gonna just eventually just gonna create a higher low, given to what I've seen here in the last couple momentum waves. All right, so interesting stuff that's happening with Bitcoin. But yeah, I'm gonna go a little bit like zoomed in into like intraday stuff. So as you can see, I like to use these. It's kind of like a Bollinger Bands type of scenario where this is obviously support. This is acting as resistance. From an intraday perspective, as you can see, support is starting to kind of expand to the downside, but it is pretty close to like these general support areas. So this is becoming less of a issue for me, and I'm more so looking at, hey, okay, when's the next take profit opportunity, which is around this particular area at 29.57 in terms of like a choppy market. But overall, yeah, that pretty much covers everything that I wanted to talk about. I do feel that we are kind of like in this interesting scenario where, pretty much market sentiment is obviously bearish given what the money flow is showing us, but I feel like we're just kind of really overextended, and I do feel like, divergences are starting to accumulate. Momentum waves are starting to kind of like, show hints of like a bearish exhaustion as well. So that's kind of like my base case. Also, on top of that, we are kind of seeing like bullish patterns kind of break out. We're kind of like at the precursor of that. Obviously, we had you you see these pattern breakouts usually are not all that pretty. There is a lot of turbulence, but it's just knowing exactly where your levels are. So for example, if I were to zoom out here and you just look at these dotted lines here. So I'm going to zoom in. You see this dotted line, these red lines? That's former resistance. So if I were to turn off all my indicators here and just leave the support and resistance indicators right here. So this was previous resistance. This was acting as previous resistance, acting as previous resistance. As you can see, when this area was getting tested, it was very, very choppy, but ultimately when it cleared it, that's when we go parabolic. Okay, so now that it was broken, I can classify this area as a potential support zone. Okay, so I'm going to turn that into a support zone. So we have not tested that. So, I mean, we could potentially test it at some point, who knows? But I do feel like this particular area is showing a lot of signs that this could hold up. Why? Because of the Fibonacci level right here, which I didn't talk about this much, but these orange lines. If I were to zoom out, for example, I've been doing a lot of intraday stuff. And let me just show you. So this orange Fibonacci extension is from the wick low down here in intraday levels to the recent high. Usually, like I had stated in the past, is the 0.618 acts as support and as the 382. Hence why I have this box area. Now, if the bearish move is intense, then the 0.236 and the 0.382 becomes zones to look for to start dollar cost averaging or adding entries, etc., etc. So I understand zooming out, this looks really insane, but it actually makes a lot of sense when you zoom in. So we did have this larger, for example, if you look at these dotted green lines, this larger descending channel that recently broke out. Obviously, this was a long-term downward trend. Now we've been kind of going sideways and, pretty much sideways and down a little bit. Now we're kind of showing signs of potential bullishness due to seeing smaller but bullish patterns, given that we're seeing these descending channels break to the upside. will break out, and we're also seeing, you know, ascending channels, which is, you know, relatively bullish as well. So Fibonacci extensions work on larger time frames and smaller term time frames. So I have multiple fib levels kind of planned out, and they still work. It's rather interesting how it works, but a lot of these traders do take these zones into consideration, and you actually kind of see them play out in real time. It's rather interesting. But yeah, overall, if I were to take everything into consideration of what I just said, everything in consideration, from here to here, I would consider this entire area as a potential support zone. Okay, so if I see price break below 29K, we're most likely going to 28.7, all the way down to maybe even, you know, the 0.32 level, right? But as long as we're kind of bouncing in this particular area, let alone above it, I can't be bearish. I just cannot. So despite sentiment kind of being predominantly bearish right now, I'm literally kind of being a contrarian almost. But you know what? I'm used to it. You know, for example, look at the S&P 500 chart. I'm going to go all the way back. I haven't looked at the S&P in forever. Okay, but for the people that were actually watching the channel, you know, I had called this descending broadening wedge here, and I called a breakout. There was a fake out below here. People were freaking out. People at, you know, 3,835 were just, you know, oh my God, we're going all the way back to 3,300. You know, we're all-time lows. We're going back to the COVID bottom, or I'm sorry, to pre-COVID highs, which was far from the truth. I even stated like, hey, the projected target is still at 4,800, which, you know, right now we're not necessarily there yet. We did break out of this resistance level, and I do see this as a support level. But you know what? Like, things happen where, you know, people are super bearish at these levels. People are so bullish at these levels. Yeah, it's just how the psychology plays out. Like, not everyone's gonna win. Sorry, that's just not how reality works. This is a zero-sum game. So just like this, you know, a lot of people are bearish right now, but what I'm looking at these charts gives us an opportunity of hope and gives us an opportunity to actually have successful contrarian moves. But anyway, I'm going to leave it at that. I just want to say thank you so much for your time. Have a great rest of the day. And yeah, please feel free to DM me if you have any questions or strategies or even, you know, cryptos you want me to test out. Take care. Bye-bye.